This is the heart of San Diego. The history of this area is told by significant San Diegans who have made and are making a difference in our community. And our guest today is Oscar Padilla. Let's learn about this famous man's life. He's had a long, distinguished career in business and in the area of civic service. In the area of public service, Mr. Padilla has been a member of the Commission of the Californias since 1993. That's his third time on that commission. He was appointed an alternate representative to the UN by President Bush, 91-92. He was a U.S. representative to the General Assembly of UNESCO. That was back in 1976, appointed by then President Ford. He's a member of the UCSD Dialogue and has been a member of the Board of Overseers at the university. Locally, Oscar Padilla has been a member and chairman of the San Diego Stadium Authority. He's been a member of the Planning Commission. This among his many local activities. He's also received numerous awards and honors. Oscar, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you, Fred. Pleasure and honor.
Calexico, California in 1924. That's where it started for you.
That's where it all started.
I have a picture of your folks here. What kind of childhood did you have?
It was a small town, as you can imagine, with a connections with border and relations, practically an open border. And it was small, very, very quaint, very friendly, which it still is to a degree.
What did you do in high school? Any specific activities that made you stand out a bit?
No, I wish I'd taken more interest in my studies, though I don't like to say this for any young person out there, but, or maybe I should. I think I want to make this my example more. If I'd have paid more attention in school and done better with my grades, my parents, I don't recall ever taking a book home with me, doing homework. I don't know how I ever got through high school. But I managed. And looking back now, I wish that I'd paid more attention to school and studies and learned more than what I came out of learning in high school.
World War II came into your life not long after you graduated.
No, before.
Really?
Before I graduated.
No. The war started before, but it came into your life after you graduated because you went. How?
Because I was in junior,
yes.
and I knew that I would be drafted sooner or later. So I left school to join the Army, get into the Army. I would love to get into the Navy, but I didn't know how to swim. And I said, I'm not going to be on a ship that gets torpedoed out in the middle of the ocean, and I don't know how to swim, so I better stay on land. So I let the draft take me into the Army. And so I served in Europe from France, Belgium, and into Germany for a period of about 5 months.
Oscar Padilla, was there prejudice against Mexican Americans when you were in the military during World War II?
I never noticed it. Well, for one thing, I was the only Mexican American in my unit, but I never noticed it. Say when I went out base to the town, Colorado Springs, or towns in Tennessee, I never observed it or noticed any hostility towards me.
In Germany, on the picture on the right, you met your wife-to-be, and tell us about that story.
My loving wife, I met her in a town called Traben-Trabach on the Mosel. We were stationed there, and her home was originally in Dusseldorf, but her father, because of the incessant bombing by the Allies, sent her to her mother and her to this small town in Dusseldorf on the Mosel.
Let me interrupt to say, now here's a picture of your 50th wedding anniversary.
Yes.
Not too long ago, several years ago, you and your charming wife, and she still looks wonderful as you do. How did you bring your wife to the United States? Was there any problem?
No, I ran more into a problem with her mother than I did with her father. You would think that her father would be very resentful, not only because of seeing her daughter going so far away, but also because of the fact that I was a former enemy of his country. But the father was very supportive of her coming to America to marry me. She was only 19 years of age. The hostilities with Germany had just ended within 5 months when I proposed to her. But we waited a year, I came back back home in '46, in March of '46, and she arrived in April of 1947 after clearing through the U.S. Immigration Naturalization Service.
So everything was fine, and you went back to Calexico, and you started with the Bank of America. Tell us about your banking career.
Well, when I came back, we had as a discharged GI.
You were a staff sergeant, were you?
I was a master sergeant.
Master sergeant.
I just discharged a master sergeant, or what they call a sergeant major, who was in charge of the battalion, the administrative end of the battalion. So when I came back home, I thought of going to college, taking advantage of the GI Bill rights. So I enrolled in Woodbury College. At that time, it was a well-known business college in Los Angeles. I enrolled for classes there. When one evening, I ran into both the manager and assistant manager of the Bank of America, and they asked me what my future was going to be. I told them they knew about my engagement because it had been publicized in Calexico, a small town. And I told them about my enrollment at Woodbury College, and I was going to take a business course. He said, why don't you come and work for us? We'll teach you everything they're going to teach you in the classroom there, and this is, you'll be learning.
But you'll have practical experience.
You'll have practical on-the-job experience. So it made sense. My wife was already scheduled, my future wife was scheduled to come to Calexico, so it made sense. So I went to work for them for 3 years.
We have a picture, first of all, of you and Ronald Reagan, and you were his interpreter on the Commission of the Californians,
yes,
which you were appointed to, as I said, 3 different times by different governors.
Yes.
And give us a quick snapshot of Ronald Reagan, Oscar.
Whenever we had meetings of the Commission of Californians, and he would come to address the commissioners, the members of the Commission of Californians, I would, being the only Hispanic member of the Commission of Californians at the time, I served myself, or they asked me if I would interpret for him what was being said in Spanish, translated over to him. So when I was invited to a luncheon in the White House when he was president, and I was telling him about that. I was reminding him that I was his interpreter.
And he said, oh, of course.
Oh, yes. He grabbed my arm, as you can see in the photograph. Yeah. Of course, he said. Good to see you.
About the time you got the idea for starting an insurance business, this is the way the border looked at San Isidro, and the border between San Diego and San Isidro, in a very wonderful historic picture about 1950 or so. Tijuana, of course, in the upper end of the picture in the San Diego area, and San Isidro would have been to the lower part of the picture. How did you get the idea of doing Mexican insurance for Americans and others?
I started in the insurance business at the invitation of a local friend of mine in Calexico who asked me if I would come and join him in insurance. I knew beans about insurance, and furthermore, I hated to sell something that wasn't tangible, something that you couldn't show, like an automobile or a refrigerator or
sure,
TV set. So I had qualms, but I was about maybe 27 years of age or so. I was under 30, and I said, you know, if you don't take advantage of these opportunities that they present themselves now, it may be too late later on. So I said, why not? Let's give it a try. So I went to work for him. It was very interesting, very successful, and an opportunity presented itself to buy into an existing insurance agency. So I took that advantage. I went into buying my small interest into that agency. Now, you must understand that Calexico is a population of 6,500 people at that time, and there were 5 competitors, 5 good, strong, old competitors of older people, older than I. So I went to work for them, and it was quite a struggle the first 2 years. And one day, looking through a journal, business journal, insurance journal, I saw an article that said, if you're having problem with competition, look for something that the others are not doing, are not offering, and get involved with that and make that your specialty. So the opportunity at that time presented itself because the highway from Mexico City was finally finished between Mexicali and Mexico City. Before they go to Mexico City, you had to go to Nogales. So I felt this as an opportunity, so I jumped at it. I acquired a Mexican insurance company to underwrite for, and that was a kickoff.
And you've done very, very well. Not too long after that, You ran for Congress.
No,
excuse me,
Assembly.
for State Assembly in the state of California, out of Calexico, California. And there's Oscar Padilla for State Assemblyman. Knows Valley farm problems. Is a veteran, etc., etc. And you met a lot of people during that campaign, including, I believe, Richard Nixon.
The year that Nixon ran for president.
1960.
That's
Nixon
at
and
the
Pat on
podium
the
is a
right.
Congressman Utt from Orange County. In the back of him, clapping, is Senator Kuechel. And there I am in the back on your right, on the right side of the photograph. I was on the podium as an invited guest, being a fellow candidate for public office.
And around the same time, Dwight Eisenhower sent you a congratulatory letter, which was nice to receive,
Yes.
about Senator Kuechel telling him that you were running for State Assembly. Oscar, you finally make the move to San Diego. You had an office in San Isidro, you had an office in Calexico. And why did you come to San Diego about 1968?
1968 was a year that the Olympics was going to be, Summer Olympics was going to be celebrated in Mexico City. So I figured that San Diego would make a better base to launch my Mexican insurance statewide than in Calexico. So that prompted me to move to San Diego. Always had in the back of my mind to move to San Diego.
We have some pictures here of your first attempts at drive-through auto insurance, Padilla's Mexican Insurance drive-through. And then there's another picture right below there. And that was your first auto insurance. And that was the lower one in Calexico?
No, San Isidro. They're
That
both
was
in
in
San
San
Isidro,
Isidro.
yes.
Business is good. You get very, very active in the community.
Very good. Very
You
successful.
get appointed to the Commission of the Californias.
Yes.
And tell us about some of the men and women that you worked with in government that really impressed you, the governors like Deukmejian and Reagan and Wilson. You were appointed to the Planning Commission in 1972 by Pete Wilson here in San Diego.
Who I met through the Commission of the Californias. He was an assemblyman and a member of the Commission of the Californias from the legislature. And when he ran for mayor of San Diego the first time, he came to me and asked me if I would serve as his finance chairman, or treasurer, excuse me, treasurer of his campaign, which I very humbly accepted. And when he was elected mayor, he called me and asked me and said that he was going to appoint me to the Planning Commission, which I'm very lucky and very fortunate to accept.
What did you learn about San Diego while you were on the Planning Commission, I believe for 8 years, 1972 to 1980?
1972 to 1980. I learned a lot about San Diego, and I learned a lot about the politics that were involved in San Diego. The Planning Commission at that time was being chaired by Lou Wolfsheimer, who has been on your program.
Yes.
And we had a very interesting 8 years, because we saw the formation and development of Seaport Village, which had to be finally approved by Coastal Commission, but we had a hand in the approval of the Seaport Village. We had the University Town Center came before us.
Yes.
So did the beginning of Horton Plaza, and also Carmel Valley, which was then known as North City West. They couldn't find a name tag on it, so it finally ended as Carmel Valley.
So many appointments by different presidents. President Ford appointing you to UNESCO, and you were there in Nairobi, Kenya,
Yes.
in 1976, 1977. Can you give us 20 seconds on that experience?
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. It was the first time in the continent of Africa for my wife and I, Margaret. And we served with various members, nations in a new building that Nairobi, the country of Nairobi, had built for that purpose, for the hosting of the United Nations.
The conference center, which still stands today, of course. Yes.
And it was the first time in the history of UNESCO that they celebrated their General Assembly outside of Paris, which is their home base. And we were very, very interested. It was very exciting.
Oscar Padilla, 1991-92, you were appointed by President Bush as an alternate delegate to the United Nations. On the upper picture, we have Oscar Padilla posing in front of the United Nations.
That's our mission in the background.
And in the lower picture, some of the people on the delegation with you. This would be Ambassador Pickering, and here is Oscar
Yes.
Padilla and some of the other people. Tell us about that experience. And your 15 minutes of fame as you address the United Nations.
My 15 minutes of fame. I addressed the General Assembly, giving them the report on the International Atomic Energy Agency's annual report to the United Nations.
You have 10 seconds. How do you want to be remembered by this community?
I like to be remembered as the person who gave back to his community, whose community felt his community was good to him, and he felt wanted to contribute back to his community.
And you have. His name is Oscar Padilla, our guest on the Heart of San Diego. I'm Fred Lewis here on ITV. See you soon right here on the Heart of San Diego.